Hello and welcome to the award-winning Business Stories podcast. Yes, award-winning. I am absolutely made up to have been recognised recently by big business events for my efforts in getting the podcast off the ground and getting to a fantastic start with some really good, engaging guests. So thank you so much for that. So the usual format of the podcast is to speak to entrepreneurs, business owners and inspirational leaders and find out their stories in their business, the highs, the lows, the struggles and the success stories. But today I've got a slightly different format. I'm going to be discussing mindset. Now, obviously, mindset has a massive part in the decision making and the outcomes of any business. So that's something that's very close to my heart, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about it. I'm also going to be asking 3 questions that you can take away, and I'm going to be sharing some of my own experiences. So do bear in mind I'm not an expert on the subject. However, I have done a heck of a lot of studying, a lot of reading, listened to hundreds of podcasts on the subject. It's something that's very close to my heart because I've had my own struggles with mindset along the way, personally and in business, and I know the effect it can have. I'm in a good place now. I've come through it. I've come out the other side. I'm feeling really positive. So that's really the reason for this week's subject, because I feel that I've got something to offer in my experiences and hopefully share that on for you guys to benefit from. So I want to start with a quote. This is called a psychological governor, and it goes like this: think you can or think you can't, you're right. Let me say that again. Think you can or think you can't, you're right. So what does that mean? It's referring to the power of positive thinking. So what it's saying is, whatever mindset you are, you can have a massive control over your destiny by the power of your thoughts, and that steers you in a certain direction. So if you think you can do something, if you're in a positive mindset and you're a can-do person, you're a glass half full, then the decisions that you make are going to steer you in the right direction that you're trying to get to. So you think you can do it, you're going to make positive decisions. You're going to say yes to things to steer you in that direction. You're going to face fears to steer you in that direction. So by default, by saying yes to those things, it does lead you slowly in the direction of the positive outcome. Or maybe you're glass half empty and your quote is that you think you can't, in which case you're not going to give it 100%. You're not going to be trying. You're going to be looking for every opportunity to bail out and not follow it through. So whichever one you think, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're also right. Interesting. When you think about it to a certain extent, that has a hell of a lot of truth behind it. The power of positive thinking is everything. So let's go back to the beginning of your journey. When you're a newborn baby, you come into the world with 2 primal fears: fear of falling and fear of loud noises. So instinctively, you would act on those fears. If a lion's running towards you, it's your instinct to run away because it's danger or potential pain. Your other type of fear, which is more of what we're talking about, is your intellectual fears. Now, these are not physical fears. They're not fears that would cause you pain. So let me give you some examples of intellectual fears. So there's about 5 or 6 types of intellectual fear. So you've got fear of failure, which is a defense mechanism. If you think that you're not going to succeed in something, the default is probably not to try it in the first place. You've got fear of rejection. Again, similar story. If you feel unnerved about being rejected, then the chances are you're not going to try to do that thing. So whether that's, rejection in a relationship or whether that's rejection in business, perhaps those marketing phone calls that you need to be doing or meeting people face to face, people are generally frightened of being rejected. They're frightened of getting that no. Ultimately in business, that's something that you've just got to deal with and move on and not let it affect you too much. Third one is fear of success. Now, maybe that's not one that would instantly spring to mind, but it does happen. People strive to get somewhere in their business, or they reach a status, and all of a sudden they've got this success or this view of it, and it scares them a little bit because maybe they don't want to be in the limelight, or maybe they don't want to be scrutinized for their success. So that is a fear as well. Number 4, imposter syndrome. So again, similar to your success, maybe you've got to a point and you feel, well, I'm not worthy of this point that I've got to, or, I'm not ready for this recognition. Number 5, fear of being alone. So again, back to your relationships, maybe, for the people that want to be in relationships, the fear of being alone is another intellectual fear. So the result of all of those 5 intellectual fears would be not taking action. So any of those fears that are instilled in you would potentially prevent you from taking action. So in a business perspective, if you're not taking action, then you're not pushing yourself to the next level. And if we're talking about a negative mindset based on what's going to happen in the future, so let's take anxiety, for example. So how many times have you worried about something that's going to be coming up in the future, whether that's an event, whether that's an exam, whether that is a meeting with somebody, and, you might have spent ages worrying about it. I wonder if this is going to go well. I wonder if I'm going to forget my lines. I wonder if I'm going to trip up. You could have sleepless nights over this thing, and it can cause you all sorts of problems in your mindset. And then you do the thing and it goes absolutely brilliantly. And then you come out and you think, well, what was all the worry about? I'm really pleased with how that went. And I know firsthand, because I've done it myself, I've spent so long worrying about this stuff in the future when you don't need to. You need to live in the present. You need to experience what's going on right now, because you're going to miss it otherwise. If you don't enjoy what's happening now, if you don't enjoy that time with your kids, the time with your family, those walks, what's going on around you, look at everything that's around you and take it in, because quite often everyone gets so hung up on the shit that happened in the past, the stuff that might go wrong in the future, and they don't focus on actually experiencing what's going on right now. So don't forget, make sure that you enjoy it while it's here. So in a recent study, I found that 85% of future worries never happened. 85%. So that fear of failure, that fear of rejection, that fear of success, all of those things that you potentially are not taking action on and you're holding yourself back from, 85% of those fears are going to turn out absolutely fine without all that unnecessary worrying and panicking over what might happen. So there's every chance that if you push yourself through those fears and take the action, there's every chance that you're going to succeed and you're going to get through it. Fear drives you to either do something or not to do it. So fear drives you to run away if it's a primal fear, or fear drives you to hold yourself back if it's an intellectual fear. And left to itself, the brain will naturally go towards the negative. You typically spend more time thinking about what you don't want rather than what you. Whereas if you turn it on its head and you think of the positive outcomes, your actions will steer you towards those positive outcomes. Now, I'm not saying it's a clear cut, you're going to win at everything, but what I'm saying is, if you have that mindset that I'm going to push through this fear of failure, and on the other side there might be success, then, as long as it's not some big financial commitment, what have you got to lose? And your actions in that positive mindset, your actions will drive you towards a more positive outcome. So to recap, the fear arises from imagining the future pain. The future pain that there's an 85% chance of will never happen. So obviously that causes procrastination, and you're avoiding the fear by running away from it. So how do you push past that comfort zone and push yourself to face these fears? For me, I just need to stop for a second when I'm conscious that I'm having that thought, that I'm holding myself back. I just have to stop and tell myself, you're not in physical danger. You're just feeling this fear because it's something that you're not comfortable with. But potentially on the other side of pushing myself, there's more gains to come out of it. So whether that's a business deal that, you push yourself to get involved with, or whether that's standing up in front of a room full of people that you're not comfortable with, guarantee by the time you've done it and you've achieved it a few minutes later, or however long it takes, you will feel so much stronger and you'll feel so much better about yourself that you've actually faced that fear. So growth only normally occurs with that fear of uncertainty. Usually on the other side of that uncertainty, once you've pushed through the fear, that's where your growth happens. So the indicator is when you feel the fear and you're uncertain, just push through it. Face the fear, grow and lean in. And the progress that you make from leaning in and facing that fear, it compounds and it adds up, which makes you stronger to face the next one. So what happens is the more you say yes and the more you lean in, you get that good feeling afterwards because you've achieved it, which just gives you more confidence the next time to say yes before those negative thoughts start creeping in. See, what you don't realise is when you're in that actual moment and you're having those negative thoughts, there's not usually enough time to quantify it and to take a step back and realise what's happening. So the more you can realise and understand those times and become more self-aware, it enables you to work on yourself and it enables you to change those thoughts. So I think the way to make progress is if you picture yourself in the future, you're in this exciting, positive, successful place. It's the goal that you've wanted to achieve and you've managed to push yourself and you managed to get yourself there. That then steers your thoughts that this is the place that you're going to end up in. It steers your thoughts into taking those positive actions on the little times when you're not expecting to, saying yes instead of passing it off, getting rid of those negative thoughts, and it just steers you into that better place.
Dash Couriers is your one-stop logistics shop if you need to move parcels, pallets or freight anywhere in the UK. With every size vehicle, ready and waiting for speedy dispatch to anywhere in the country. Choose Dash Couriers as your preferred delivery partner for a superior service. Get your free quote online at www.dashcouriers.co.uk.
So there's three things you can ask yourself to start working towards a more positive future. So the first thing you can do is write down your fears and where you learnt them. So I'm not talking about your primal fears, we've all got those. I'm talking about your intellectual fears. And where did you learn them from? So, if you're frightened of rejection, for example, maybe that's something that's come through a relationship, or maybe that's something that's come through a business scenario, but that potentially is holding you back from doing that thing again. So just ask yourself, what's the worst possible outcome of being rejected in that particular situation? So let's say it's a sales call and your fear is that someone's going to say no to you when you say, can we work with you? Well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say no, and then you're going to move on to the next one. The second one is, what emotional pain do you anticipate from the fear? And finally, how is that fear preventing you from the future life that you want? If you imagine yourself facing that fear and not holding you back, and visualize the future that you do want and you do deserve. So I'm a big believer that if you surround yourself with a group of people, you are the sum of the 5 people that you most hang out with. So if you surround yourself with positive and supporting people, that rubs off. Bring more positive people into your world and mix with like-minded people who've got some positive ideas and some supportive things. Honestly, I know firsthand, since we got involved with some business coaching, we are surrounded by business owners and entrepreneurs, and it's unbelievable the amount of support you get and the amount of comments that you get. You need advice, you need help, you need a little bit of guidance. And when you get decent, nice, genuine people around you, but there's nothing harder than being the one positive person in a sea of negativity and a sea of people that are going to bring you down and drag you in the wrong direction. And is it too late to change? No, it's never too late. So let's use myself as an example. I've got over 30 years in business. I've had plenty of ups and downs, as you can imagine. I used to be incredibly shy, probably more so when I was a lot younger, but that still carried on well into my adult life, and lack of confidence and a real feeling of being judged by other people, probably, just down to the lack of confidence. So those two things kind of went hand in hand. And then a few years ago, we started a new business. We started Dash Couriers, and it was kind of a bit, almost the start of a new journey. We moved to the area because we're originally from Berkshire, so we moved into Wiltshire. In starting this business, we had to run teams. We had to take on more people. So you kind of almost have to become this new person that people look up to. So a little bit of that rubbed off and probably helped and brought me out of my shell a little bit. And then last year, we started to get involved with some networking to just raise the business profile. Used to really struggle with that kind of walking into the room when everybody else is having these conversations and what appears to be that they all know each other and they're all having a laugh and a great time, and I'm there just wanting the ground to swallow me up. So I literally went for one session with a really good mindset coach. Hopefully he's listening to this to see what a good job he's done. But yeah, one session, and I'm not saying that everyone can be fixed with one session, but fortunately for me, it kind of made a few things click into place, and it helped me, gave me some processes to deal with stuff a little bit. So we drilled down into actual facts. So it was, tell me what you're feeling and tell me why you're feeling it. So I was feeling a lack of confidence, and I was feeling that I was being judged all the time. And obviously that's a negative kind of mindset mentality. So we broke it down into actual facts. So it was, right, do you know the people in the room? No, I don't. Do they know you? No, they don't. So why would they be judging you? Well, they're probably not judging me, but it's the impression I get. Okay, it's the impression you get, but are they judging you? Can you prove that they're judging you? We kind of, after literally a few minutes, established the fact that this preconception in my head was literally that. It was a made up fact in my head. No, my other thought process was, I can't do this. So on the back of the fact that I now understand they're not judging me, it then allows me to think, well, I can do this. Sometimes I still have to remind myself. However, it's every time I do it, it gets easier. And yeah, so what I'm getting at is there are definitely processes, and there's definitely people that anyone can go and talk to, and they can give you some really good strategies on how to deal with your mindset. And you'd be amazed at how you can reframe things, and it changes your approach. If there's bigger things that you need to deal with, then you just take it in very small steps. You break it down into pieces, and you get some help with quantifying one little thing at a time. And then once you get over the one little thing, you then move on to the next thing. And you can work on yourself, and you can use these procedures to help to put you in the right frame of mind. Yeah, and it's worked really well. That's something that I found, really useful, and I got a lot out of it. So another strategy I use is in a book by Mel Robbins. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 strategy. It is such a simple thing to use, and I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but again, it's quite often the simplest little things that if you are willing to take them on board, and if you are, in that mindset that you do want to make improvements and better yourself, then it's certainly worth giving it a go. So this approach is to help you ignore the negative voices in your head. So if you're in a room of people and you've got this little window of opportunity to stand up and say something, so the boss says, oh, we're just going to close the meeting shortly. Has anyone else got anything to say? So you've got something planned that you want to say, but you're not brave enough to stand up and say it. You're feeling a bit anxious, you're feeling a bit negative, and you can't do it. And you're going to get this negative voice in your head that says, no, you just stay there because you're not brave enough to do it. So if you use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 strategy, you count backwards. And when you get to before you get to 0, you've just got to get up and action it and do it. You're almost forcing yourself to do it in your countdown. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is to distract you from the negative thoughts. Hence, you action the thing that you're going to do. You can use that in a lot of things. You can do that to get yourself out of bed as soon as the alarm goes off. You can do that to get yourself out for a run. And the other really big mindset help for me was when I got into running about 5 years ago. So previously, I wasn't remotely interested in fitness, didn't enjoy it at school, went into my 40s, mid-40s without having any interest in fitness whatsoever. And the kids came home one day and had to do a mile run around the garden. So we ended up doing loads of laps around the garden, and I did it with them and absolutely killed myself. But that was the start of me getting into doing some running. So I, gradually did to the end of the street and back, and then I did to the end of the village and back, and took a hell of a lot of discipline. It took, really strong will to get out there and do all the training and keep turning up for it. And obviously building on it gradually, just compounding, doing a little bit at a time. But mindset in long distance running is everything. So yeah, I can definitely recommend any form of running is a massive help for mindset, and it helps you to be a lot more disciplined in making those decisions and pushing yourself to get out there and do it. And you can take on new things. According to Tony Robbins, it is possible to train your mind to think differently in just 4 weeks. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be finished in 4 weeks, but it would certainly be a good work in progress. And you can learn a new skill, obviously depending on what it is, in only 20 hours. Now, that's pretty epic. If you want to challenge yourself to improve your mindset, take up something, I don't know, take up the guitar or take up running or take up a hobby of some sort. 20 hours, you can learn a new skill. Now, you're not going to be an expert in it, but if it's 20 hours, that's say 2 hours a week for 10 weeks. So how do you change your mindset? Well, it just takes a lot of practice. You've just got to, when those negative thoughts come in. So you're prompting yourself to do something, and then instantly you have the little voice in your head that says, "Oh no, you can't do that," and then reframe how you approach your thoughts. So rather than say, "I can't do that thing," whatever it may be, reframe that and say, "Well, actually, how can I do that?" So you're almost admitting to yourself that it is possible to do it, and you've just got to find a way to do it. So you've just got to look at it from another approach and think, well, what's the first step to achieving that thing? If it's a big task, you only need to worry about the first step. Just think about the thing that you first need to do to start making steps towards getting it actioned. That's how you change that mindset into the can do rather than I'm never going to do it. And look back on your goals of what you've achieved daily. Maybe if you look back at the end of the month, so you've done 30 little daily goals across the month. After thinking you couldn't do it, you've just done these little tiny steps every day. You've done a little bit more. You've compounded it and added onto it. And all of a sudden it's grown into something that you now can achieve. So your thoughts do steer your reality, back to what I said at the start. If you think you can do it, then you're going to find a way to do it. If you think you can't, you're not going to put the effort in, and you're not going to do it. Just tune yourself into the right channel to reach that destination. And don't forget to surround yourself with those positive, supportive people. Whatever it is you're doing, be in that group of those people that are encouraging you to do it, helping you along the way. So there we go. That's all I've got for you for today. I really hope that that's given you lots to think about, and maybe you can resonate with some of today's discussion. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please leave me a review. That would be fantastic. And don't forget to subscribe and share it with anyone else that you think would like to take a listen. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you again on the next Business Stories podcast. I hope you all have a great week and stay positive, everyone.